Hi everyone, this is Seihi Chang, and today we're going to learn how to make kimchi with Napa cabbage. I'm going to show you how to make this really easy dish. Let's start by cutting the cabbage. So here's my Napa cabbage. It's a really nice size, and I'm going to show you how to cut it and get it ready. Okay, so I'm going to cut the cabbage into quarter pieces here. Now cut off the core, and then let's cut it into 1 inch to 1.5 inch pieces. Cut off the core again on this one. Again, 1 to 1.5 inch pieces. Okay, so now we cut up the Napa cabbage into square pieces. And then I'm going to show you how to brine the cabbage. A lot of people have a hard time with the brining process, but it's really easy and very simple. So I have about 1/2 cup of coarse salt. I'm just going to sprinkle it over the 1 head of cabbage. Okay? And I'm going to just mix it up here. And there are 2 types of brining process. You have the dry brine without any water, so you can just let this sit if you like. This will take a little longer. However, I add a little bit of water, about 1/2 cup or so, to just add a little bit of moisture and to make the brining process go a little faster. Okay. And I like to use warm water. Lukewarm is fine. And pretty much this is the way you brine the cabbage. So we're gonna let the salt get into the cabbage and leave it like this for at least 45 minutes to an hour. So while the cabbage is brining, we're going to make the rice paste with the mochiko powder. It's sweet rice flour. And I have about 2 cups of water, and we're going to add 4 large tablespoons of the mochiko. You're going to start it at high heat, and it's going to boil pretty quickly. You want to stir it as it boils so the powder doesn't clump up too much. Just keep stirring. Okay, so now the heat has been reduced to medium, and it is a thick paste, very glue-like, and you want to let it cool down. And now let's go back to the cabbage and see what it's doing. Okay, so you see how the cabbage is nicely brined. It's been sitting like this for about 45 minutes. And all I did, again, was use the coarse brining salt, the coarse Korean salt. And it's nice and sort of limp like this. Now we need to drain it and get the salt out of the cabbage and wash it a little bit. You don't have to rinse off the salt completely, but make sure you rinse most of the salt off, okay? And we're gonna make sure you squeeze out the excess water. And it's pretty much ready to go. And we'll be able to season it pretty soon. So there you go. Okay, so let's make the mixture to season the cabbage. And I want to talk about the ingredients that will go into the seasoning. Okay, So the most important part of the seasoning is the rice flour mixture, and it really acts as a thickening agent. So I usually say it's like a glue, right? And it's a binding agent, so you want all the flavors to be smeared into the cabbage really nicely. So let's make the mixture first, and then we'll add it into the cabbage. Usually, of course, I've done this many times. I'm just gonna start putting things into the big bowl. But if you feel more comfortable making the mixture first, that's what you can do. So I'll show you how we make the seasoning. Okay, so now we have about a cup of the sweet rice flour mixture. Okay, so that's the base of the seasoning. And we have a ton of garlic here. I used about 1 head of garlic. You can use more or less. It's up to you. But I prefer at least 1 head of garlic for 1 whole Napa cabbage. So the garlic goes in. And then we're gonna add about, I would say, 2 teaspoons of minced ginger. My mom always said add 2 parts garlic, 1 part ginger. Some people love ginger, but ginger is very overpowering sometimes, so you want to just watch the balance. I prefer more garlic in my kimchi anyway. So we're gonna mix that up. And then of course now we have the gochugaru, which is Korean chili powder. I like this brand a lot. You can get it in the US and also in Europe. And it's one of my favorite brands of chili powder. So I'm gonna, let's say, add about, it's gonna be anywhere between 2 to 5 tablespoons of chili powder. I like mine spicy, so I've added about 4 very large tablespoons of chili powder. I'm gonna mix that up. Okay, so we have here, just to recap, the rice flour mixture, the gochugaru, the chili powder, the garlic and the ginger. And you need, of course, something to salt the seasoning, right? And traditionally we would use fish sauce or other seafood seasonings. But let's say you're a vegetarian or you have seafood allergy or you don't want to use fish sauce, then my favorite way to season the mixture is by using kelp. So this is Korean kelp or dashima, and I make the kelp broth really easy. You just bring some water to a boil, and you're gonna add a couple of pieces. I would say 3 to 4 pieces of dried kelp. That's perfect. You let it sit for at least 30 minutes. I like to let it sit a little longer, maybe like an hour, to really have that strong, seafood flavor infused in the water. So that's what you have. So instead of fish sauce, this is what you would use as a substitute. And now I'm gonna make the seasoning with the traditional fish sauce and salt it that way. So again, one of my favorite brands is the Squid brand fish sauce, but there are tons of different fish sauce brands out there. So I'm gonna add, let's say, a couple of, it's gonna be about a tablespoon to a tablespoon and a half of fish sauce. Okay, so you wanna mix in that fish sauce. And then for extra boost of flavor, I'm going to add Korean salted shrimp, which is called 새우젓, another great brand to use. And you really don't need a lot. I would say maybe 1 teaspoon at the most, because it's very salty, pretty pungent. Okay? And you're gonna, again, just stir that in. Okay, so the mixture is pretty much ready here, and we're gonna put it into the cabbage. I'm just mixing it up a little bit. So I'm gonna start with, let's see, half the mixture, and let's go from there. You can also add extra ingredients like, I just cut up some radish. This is daikon radish. And of course I love green onions, so I'm just gonna add a bunch of green onions. This was probably one large bunch of green onions. And then we're gonna just mix it all in. Okay, so you have this beautiful red mixture now. I tasted the seasoning, it's really good. I think it's salty enough. Now, sometimes, some people say this is optional, but I'm gonna add a little bit of sugar. You can just use white sugar. If you prefer brown sugar, that's fine. About a tablespoon of sugar to just add a little flavor and to balance out the saltiness and all the fishiness, right? And I always make extra seasoning paste because depending on how big the cabbage head is, or you know, whether or not I want it a little bit more spicier or saucier, I'm gonna have that extra mixture here, okay? Now we have a glass jar, and usually it's better to have a wide mouth jar, okay? Because you're gonna be putting the kimchi with your hands, or you need like a wider ladle or a spoon. So a glass jar is perfect to store the kimchi. And now we're gonna just pack the kimchi into this glass jar. And you really want to make sure it's tightly packed. Okay? And it's okay if there's a little bit of room. But you just want to make sure you pack it tight. And then I'm gonna make sure we wipe away the mixture, the edges. And I'm gonna pack it up here. So there's your beautiful glass jar of kimchi. So enjoy.